Hello everyone and welcome back to the Toby Lodge channel for another Fantasy EFL Game Week preview. This week it's Game Week 26. We are flying through the season and this week is one of my dream double game weeks. We've got all of the League 1 teams and all of the League 2 teams doubling up this week, so can't wait to get into it. We've got so much to unpack. We're also joined by the world number 36 in Tyler, who we haven't had on the channel before. Super excited to have a new expert on, and it's a really good experts corner, so stick around for that later on too. So we've so much to unpack, so many stats to give you, so let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. However, before we get into this week's action, we've got to recap last week's game week that has just gone. Well, actually, as I'm recording this is on the Wednesday, so we've just had the Tuesday round of fixtures, but we've not had a couple of games left on the Wednesday. So Watford haven't played yet as I'm recording this. I am needing some kind of miracle to save my week because it's not been great. In fairness, I haven't dropped too much in terms of rank. From I think I was at about 4.6k, I've gone down to 4.9, which isn't ideal. However, still got my captain, still got a defender, still got a team pick. So I do think that if somehow, Watford pull a masterclass, then maybe we could be saved. If I get over the 80-point mark, I would say I would be really happy. Hopefully it's at least 75 plus we finish on. And I do think that would bring the rank up a little bit more because there's not too many assets still to go. We're obviously awaiting Southampton. We need Armstrong to not do too well. But maybe you're going to watch this on the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday. And, that's already been and gone. And I'm already looking like even more of a mug. But anyway, on to what actually happened. Obviously, Preston with an absolute disaster class. As I said over on my Twitter, FEFLTIPS, if you're not following me, go and follow me right now. But as I said over there, I'm not too bothered about it because there weren't really too many other picks that I would have picked. I think Coventry maybe could have been a smart one, but it would have put me on 4 out of 5 of them too. And I do just like to have a Coventry and Ipswich in the bank, and I would have been out of Ipswich picks if I'd used them too, I think. So yeah, it's certainly not too mad with it, but obviously they got 0 points, so it's just as bad as it could have been, and picking nearly anybody else would have done better for us. BDK and Walton were obviously the shining lights. Alfie Devine wasn't so divine. I kept alluding to it on my Twitter, making the divine pun, and yeah, he just didn't really perform. The first game, 6 points was decent. The 3-pointer, not ideal. In the second round, and yeah, Sims was benched as well, which just felt really unfortunate to me because I've had him in before and he's been benched for that second fixture as well. So I maybe should have learnt my lesson. I sort of said it last week as well. Do I just pick Armstrong and then there's not as much of a minutes risk, you would think anyway. Maybe I should have done that in hindsight. Didn't think Sims would be dropped, especially after 3 goals in 3 games, but it is what it is. Watford could still rescue us, and hopefully game week 26 is more around more my ray of expertise. So yeah, fingers crossed, being some League 1 assets. So enough of game week 25. Hopefully tonight goes very well. Now let's get into all of the game week 26 action. So game week 26 club picks. I'm not going to do the key information section this week because it's just as straightforward as this. It's the League 1 teams and the League 2 teams who are doubling. So watch out for all of those and don't go near the championship assets. There's no point when you can pick so many excellent assets who are doubling elsewhere. Before I do dive into all of the stats, just got to say, if you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe. This year we're going to hit 1,000 subscribers. I am determined to make sure, and I'd love to hit 700 in the next couple of months. So if you're not subscribed already, go and subscribe. If you've got a second account, go and subscribe on that. If your nan's got an account, your mum's got an account, go and subscribe. Hit the like button as well. Let's try and get way over 50 likes if we can. I always say 75, we never quite hit it. Maybe we could hit 75, but 50 would be absolutely lovely too. So appreciative of anything, any of you who watch the content, whether you watch 1 in every 5 videos or you watch every week. I appreciate all of you so much from the bottom of my heart. Anyway, enough of that soppy nonsense. Let's get into this. And Bromley are the most selected team that I've got here so far, and to be honest, my Bromley picks keep racking up. I've been picking them quite a lot recently, so I probably will stay away this week, but I do think that it's still a good week to pick them. But just their games against Swindon and Crewe aren't the easiest, especially that Swindon fixture. The teams that they're playing against average in a league position of 6th, which is very, very tough. As you will see too, which I'm very happy with, I've put an average point in their last 6 games added into our table. I had a couple people in the comments last week mention it, and I did think it's going to take me quite a bit longer. It probably has added a couple hours onto the time that it's needed to tally this all. Maybe not a couple hours, but it added quite a bit of time, especially when you're weighing up loads of different options. But I think that it's worthwhile anyway. So especially Dean, who wrote a big comment last week, thank you for your what word can I use? It's not criticism. It's, I don't know, your pointers about the video, and I do appreciate it. What, if people think that there's ways that I can improve it, then do appreciate that. But also, I've got a job, and I'm obviously not on much of a budget for this channel, so yeah, hopefully it's going to bring a bit of an improvement to the tables. Anyway, sorry, I keep yapping this week, but I do think that Bromley are still a nice pick, but there's probably just teams that maybe you haven't used as much that it might be worth looking at this week. So, some of those we'll mention a bit later on. Similarly with Cardiff to Bromley, I think there will be easier sets of fixtures, but double home games is pretty good. And Cardiff, their last 6 games, they're ticking over pretty nicely. Not quite at the rate of Bromley, who 8.3 over the last 6 was insane. But Cardiff still looking good. Their defence is very, very good. Their attack is good as well. There are better defences than the Cardiff defence, but I do think that they're just the best team in League One. Same with Bromley. They deserve to be first, both of them. So they're always going to be pretty nice picks if you can afford to pick them. Salford, really nice fixtures, especially that Bristol game. Salford's defence is what scares me. They just concede so many goals, but in terms of the attacking output, it's ridiculous. They are so good, and I think that the likes of Udo, are going to be, maybe even Graydon, are going to be really nice picks for Salford this week. But for now, I don't know, it's just the defence that puts me off a little bit, but I do think that they're certainly worth considering. Walsall, over the last 6, you'll see that maybe it's not been quite the ideal run for Walsall, but with relatively favourable fixtures, although I think that Accrington pull off a lot of upsets when people back against them. I think that the fixtures are okay. I think that Walsall are still a very good team, but maybe there's just teams who've been a bit more reliable recently. Walsall were one of the first teams that did catch my eye this week, but there's a few that I prefer, and MK Dons being one of those. I just think, personally, that MK Dons are probably the best team to pick this week. The teams they're playing against are averaging 20.5, their position in the table. MK Dons over the last 6 games have averaged 6.5 points, which is really good and above their average as well. With 2 favourable fixtures, both at home, both against teams who are really struggling. Shrewsbury and Bristol aren't playing well. I just think they're a great shout. The attack is good, the defensive data isn't bad, so very, very good. In terms of defensive data, there's one team that stands out over the rest, and that seems to be Cambridge this week. Again, I think that them and MK Dons are probably comfortably my 2 favourite team picks, and I think a lot of people will feel similar, but there's definitely room to go for a differential. The only thing with Cambridge is that their attacking data isn't amazing. 1.14 expected goals per 90 isn't perfect whatsoever, but when their defence is so good, maybe you want to look at a team like that. And they're playing against Tranmere and Shrewsbury, whose defences aren't great either. They've got a lot of clean sheets too, with 9 under their belt, and I think they've had a couple of clean sheets at home recently too. Wycombe I've put in there at the end. I've got to mention my Wycombe assets when it's possible. I think that our fixtures are pretty nice this week. I think that they're pretty good. Peterborough have obviously got themselves together, and Wigan are never a nice team to play against. But at home, our performances home and away are just night and day. At home, we look really good. Now, we'd back us to beat nearly anybody. We drew with Cardiff the other week. We've got a lot of good results. We beat Lincoln in what was their, the last loss that they've had in the league. They've been on a really good unbeaten run since then. So, at home, we're a very good team. We play some nice football at home. We tend to score quite a few goals, and the defence is really structured and really well built as well. So that data, I wish that I had the time to look at just like home data and away data. I would like to think that our home data would be really, really good and sort of carrying those numbers for us. So I do like the Wycombe pick. If I wasn't a Wycombe fan, I think I would definitely be looking at it. It's just I'm going down to the game this weekend. We'll be vlogging it, so hopefully you'll get a vlog out maybe Sunday or Monday time. But I think that if I wasn't putting too much pressure on it, being a Wycombe fan, then maybe I would be looking at it. But I don't think I can go there because it just makes so much be riding on the game. But I do think that we're a nice team to look at, and Grimsby and Reading as well, both in really good form. I think are decent honourable mentions, but Grimsby, just the away games scare me a bit, but they are nice fixtures. So that's where we're at with the club picks. A lot of options. as I say, Bromley and Cardiff, I think there might be better weeks to pick them, but I do think that both of their, the talent in their squads is just excellent, so they could still be worthwhile. So, yeah, very long club section there. Apologies for rambling on for a long time, but that's where we're at. Liking the look of a lot of them a lot, and yeah, MK and Cambridge, definitely my favourites. Onto the defenders section now, and I think that the defender selection this week is just unbelievable. I think that there is good reason to back any of these defenders, and even the honourable mentions that I've put in there as well. I think that there are some really, really good picks. We're going to start with the top three, the big three, I will call them, for the week in Sanders, Tucker and Sawunmi, because I think that all three of them are just amazing assets. They've been so good over the season. Their floor is pretty high in terms of, they can not get a clean sheet, and they can pretty easily strike a 4, 5, 6 pointer, especially Sanders and Tucker. So we will start with going in depth on Sander. I think that he's got the best set of fixtures out of anybody this week. I think that his average points and his average over the last 6 is better than anybody else as well in terms of a defender pick, nearly anybody else in the whole game. His clean sheet record is unbelievable. His goal threat isn't bad. He scored a couple this season, and he's getting a ridiculous amount of bonuses every single game. I just think that it feels crazy to go against Sanders this week. There has been a slight rumour from Paul Warren, I think, in one of his conferences recently, mentioned that Sanders has been playing with a groin issue. So there's a slight chance that he misses out. But I would like to think that if he plays this weekend, he would start midweek as well. But obviously with them being relatively easy fixtures, maybe there's a slight chance that he gets rested in one of them, so be aware of that. But aside from that, he is just the best asset possible, and if he plays Saturday, I would think that he is probably fine. You could go for the likes of an Offord, or I'm not sure who the other defenders around him are, but maybe you want to go for a different MK defender instead of him. But I would like to think that Sanders will be fine, and I think he's an excellent asset, as much as it hurts me, because I'm not a big fan of MK Dons. I'm not a big fan of Colchester either, being a Wycombe fan, but we can put those grudges to the side, and I definitely don't mind Colchester as much as MK. And Tucker is just an excellent pick, I think. Again, his bonuses are ridiculous, maybe even better than Sanders. They're definitely really, really good anyway. Just the fixtures not quite as good as Sanders' set of fixtures with Fleetwood and Grimsby, but I still think that, it's a decent shout. Tucker just hit so many clearances. I think if you've got those two in your defence, you're likely going to hit maybe 10 points from just bonuses between the two of them, which is crazy. Probably more than that, to be honest, over the course of the whole double game week. So yeah, the floor is pretty high with them two, and if you pick them both and they play both games, you're going to be in for a decent score, I think, anyway. So Wunmi, his bonuses aren't quite there, but they're still very good. But his goal threat is significantly better. His goal threat's always been really, really good. He's getting, towards the point where maybe he's due a goal because he's not scored in his last couple. So I think that he could be a great shout, a bit more of a aggressive pick, a bit, being a bit more attacking. I don't think that the fixture against Swindon and Crewe is ideal, but being Bromley and how good they are, 2 games at home, I still wouldn't put it past them to get at least 1 clean sheet in those games. But I think I just slightly prefer Sanders and Tucker this week. Sonny Bradley is my, one of those sleeper picks who I think he's probably just in the tier below those top 3 players. I think that his attacking date is excellent, and I will always back Sonny Bradley to give it a good go at scoring from a set piece. He was so good at it from, with Wycombe. I think he's always been a good attacking defender for his whole career. So I think that Bradley is still a really good pick. I think the Burton game is a decent fixture. Bradford, who are doing well, they are susceptible to a blank though in some games. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they get 1, maybe even 2 clean sheets in those games. It just feels a little less predictable with the bonuses at guaranteeing yourself a bit, a higher tally than compared to the Sanders and Tucker. But if you want a bit more of a risk, I think that Bradley's a great pick, and he'll still get you a couple of points from bonuses as well. McJanet's bonuses are really nice. Grimsby have been on a nice run of clean sheets recently. It's just both those fixtures being away that puts me off a little bit for him, but I do think that McJanet is still a very nice pick. And a big differential, you just don't get any bonus points for a defender for being away from home, and I think that maybe it's a bit more reliable going for a home player. Chris Farino has been in really good form since coming back into the Bolton team. He's doing very well. He's got some really nice point tallies. 6 points on average over his last 6 games, but that extends back to months ago because he's only just got a proper run back in the team recently. But yeah, Bolton kept a clean sheet in their last couple games. I like Farino a lot as a Wycombe fan. I think that he was really good for us, and I think that his attacking data isn't great, but he'll always put himself in the mixer for a set piece. And I think he used to be a striker for, I don't know if it was in his Loughborough University days or when he was a youngster. Chris Farino did play up front, so similarly to Suwunmi, he's a very attacking defender, and if Farino scores this week and he's on the score sheet, I'm not going to be surprised about it. And then I've put Casey for Wycombe as well, because our defensive data is good, especially at home. I always feel like we're probably going to keep a clean sheet in our home games. I know it doesn't happen all the time, but we feel very solid and we feel comfortable in a lot of those games. I do think the Peterborough fixture is pretty tricky, and Wigan at home, I don't think that we've ever really walked over them at Adams Park. But I think that, taking that aside, I think that they are decent fixtures. I think it's 15th they average between them in the table, and the clean sheets have been racking up for us. The points have been racking up. Casey and Hagelshaw for us. They've both been hitting a ridiculous amount of DEFCONs, a lot of clearances in recent games. And I think that those clearance numbers have been skewed a bit by some sub-appearances or the early season appearances, whereas recently the clearance numbers have been even better for Casey. So I think he's a great pick. I think in terms of those honourable mentions, Senior, a great pick, seems to just be scoring most weeks at the moment. Cisse, I think, I was so tempted to put him in here as one of the options, but he's averaged like 4 point something over his last 6 games. It's just so much safer to pick a, like a clearance-based defender. But Cisse one game is going to get a clean sheet and a brace or something like that, and he's going to get a nuclear total. So certainly watch out for that one, and I love that boy. But I just don't think that there is really a reason to pick him over some of the other excellent options this week. And then Evan Weir from Walsall as well, another really attacking asset. And I still like him a lot, and I think that Flint at Walsall is also a really good pick. But just prefer some of those really consistent big hitters in defence this week. Onto the midfielders section now, and apologies if I've been absolutely rambling on this video, but I just feel like I've got so much to say. It's, as I've put in the title, it's a dream double game week for me. I just love these weeks where the League One and the League Two assets are at focus, especially League One. And you'll notice that Fred Onyedinma is my sort of standout player here that I've got the picture of. I've got my Onyedinma Wycombe shirt. He's always been a favourite of mine, and I'll have a lot to say about him when it comes to it as well. So let's get into the midfielders section, because there's some really, really good picks. I think that Norwood is always a good pick. I think that these fixtures are really tricky for Stockport, but that might actually work in Norwood's favour. I think that whether it takes a set piece to break down one of these teams, or whether it just takes him stepping up, or if it's just a really combative game, that could maybe favour the interceptions. I don't think that over his last 6 we've seen the best of him, but I think that he's easing himself back to his best after he was out with an injury for a while. So I always think that Norwood's going to be a decent pick. Obviously, a lot of that XGI data is skewed by penalties. Let me know if you would rather me move it to non-penalty expected goal involvements as well, which I have been thinking about doing, but I also do think that it's worth giving players credit when they have penalties. So definitely something to think about, or maybe I try and put a little marker if I think that they might be a penalty taker. Something along those lines. Always love to hear what people think could help to improve the videos. But yeah, I do think that Norwood is still a great pick. Lewis Wing is pretty similar to him at the minute. I think that he is on penalties. I seem to recall him taking a penalty a couple of weeks ago. The interceptions have been decent as well. The fixtures are pretty nice for him. With Wing, I'm never sure if the fixtures matter too much or not, because he gets his goals from screamers from 30 yards, and you would like to think that you can hit them against most other teams, and maybe even a team that have a tighter defence. You're going to be more likely to hit a screamer against. But I still think that it's a great set of fixtures. 2 games at home, you're always going to be a bit more likely to do better at home. And the expected goal involvement is good as well, and he creates a lot as well as the goals. And 8 goals and 4 assists is a remarkable return. So I think that Wing is just a brilliant pick this week, and it's going to take a bit of bravery to go against him. I'm still undecided if I'll put him in or not, but he's definitely a really, really nice asset. Bailey from Doncaster, I haven't mentioned him for quite a long time because I don't like him as a pick. I'll be quite frank with you. He's been a centre-back a lot of his career, or he's played pretty defensively in midfield, but he just keeps scoring goals. And his position seems to fluctuate from what I've seen on the likes of the FOT mobs and Flash scores, Sofa scores, things like that. He's been at centre-back recently, but he's also been in midfield. Doncaster fans, I'm sure you can help me out, but I'm pretty sure he plays as a midfielder, but a bit of a box-to-box at the moment. But yeah, his interception data is good. The attacking data, it's not woeful, but it's just not ideal. And I just think that there's more explosive assets to pick out there. But he just keeps scoring points. An 8.2 average over his last 6 is unbelievable. So maybe you've still got to consider him. O'Reilly, I've included him because he's popular, and mainly because there wasn't a seventh midfielder that was really standing out to me. But I'd like to talk about him because I still think he's a decent pick this week, but those fixtures just aren't ideal. Notts and Bromley away is very, very tricky. I think he's an outstanding player. I watched the Crew game against Harrogate, and it sounds like the commentators, they get a bit frustrated with him because sometimes he tries to do too much. A very tricky player who creates an awful lot of chances, but he's just got that magic in his boots to create something out of nowhere, and he's been ticking over the points really nicely. He gets the odd interception, but he can also create something out of nowhere. He can score a goal from being slid in one-on-one. He can slide somebody in one-on-one, or he can score a worldie. So I don't think there's ever going to be a week where he's a bad pick, but there's just midfielders who I just prefer to him this week. One of those midfielders that I prefer to O'Reilly is Fred Onyedinma, because he's been starting up front for Wycombe. We're talking about probably my favourite Wycombe player of all time. I just love Fred so much. He always plays with a smile on his face. He's a club legend. He's come up with so many big moments. But in Fantasy EFL this year, he's having an excellent season. And I know that there's a lot of bias in there, but he's playing really, really well. He's playing up front. We don't seem to trust Woodrow playing as a striker anymore. He's been dropped into the 10 role, and then Fink isn't getting much more than 10 minutes. So I think that Onyedinma should be safe for 160 plus minutes, probably at striker, unless we sign someone in between now and this weekend, or between the midweek game. So I think Fred's minutes are really secure. He won't be on penalties, but he's going to be playing up front, and that XGI data has been better with him playing up front as well. He's put in some really good performances. Scored a brace this week. He got man of the match against top of the league Cardiff, with an assist in the other game next to them as well. So his home game's really, really good. Such an explosive player. I think he's got a massively high ceiling. But Fred is just one of those to me where if he ends up becoming really, really popular, I think that might take away from him a bit. I think he's a captaincy option and he's a bit of a differential. But if he's just an option that, feels like he's in the template, maybe it's not worth going for, because there is a chance that he blanks. But I do think that he's still got a really good chance of also like a mega haul in there too. So love Fred to pieces. I've got this shirt with Fred on the back, as I showed before as well. I had a Fred shirt many years ago too, and it's got absolutely tattered over the years, but I love that boy so much. So Fred, you will be in my team, and I will be vlogging myself filming you score your hat-trick this weekend. Shelton, who has been on penalties for Barnet, but he did miss his last penalty that he took, so whether he loses them, I'm not sure. I still think he might get to keep them, but he's been a great asset. The interceptions are pretty decent for him. With penalties in there as well, he just feels like he's got all those routes to points that make a really good asset. And he's 0% owned as well. So I think that Mark Shelton is still a good pick. It's just you got to be warned that maybe he's not going to be on penalties, but I do still think that he's a really, really nice one. And then Isaac Fletcher at Barrow. If there's any Barrow fans or any Barrow experts, I need your help here, because to me it looks like he's been playing up front in the last few weeks. He scored 3 in his last 3 league games, I believe. And I think that Gordon, the usual Barrow striker, is out injured. And it seems to me like Fletcher is probably going to play both games, both of them being up front, and he's in really good form. And Barrow haven't scored a penalty goal all season, so whether he would take it or not, I have no idea. But I do think that he could be a bit of a sleeper pick, and one that I'm really looking at, because him and Onyedinma are both playing at striker in midfield. It's obviously giving me Cabia flashbacks to earlier in the season, but I still think that they are excellent picks, and I'm definitely going to be looking at them this week. And then I've got Clark and Ashley as my honourable mentions. Clark has been hitting so many points for Luton, and Ashley is on the cusp of returning from injury too. He's just an interception menace, seems to get at least two odd interceptions a game, so worth watching out for if he ends up being in the team. For Salford, oh my days, that is so much interception, so much information. Sorry, my brain's been frazzled by midfielders. So enough of that. Now let's get into the forward section. Again, there's some really, really nice picks for forwards this week, and I actually think that it's a really tough week to actually just pick one of them. You could go for 2-2-2. I think that it's definitely viable, and there's a lot of players with really high ceilings who've actually been scoring hat-tricks recently too. I think that the last 6 average points is really nice to see here as well, because you can really see who's been in very good form. Cheek being one of them, over 10% owned. His form has been really good in terms of average points, but he's actually only hauled in 2 of his last 6 games, but just one of those being a hat-trick, I think, which sort of really makes it stand out from the rest. But 2 games at home, even if they're tricky fixtures, I still think Cheek is a really, really nice pick. Saletcher is always going to be a good pick. His XGI is ridiculous. He's so involved. just signed a new contract. There's that real feel-good factor about him at Cardiff at the moment as well, if you believe that affects things. And Cardiff are just absolutely flying and romping their way to the title. So I think that even if the fixtures aren't ideal and his form hasn't been perfect, I would still say that Saleh is a really good pick and one that you've got to think about given how involved he is. I think that Tolaj at Plymouth is probably my favourite out of the options as well. Also got a hat-trick fairly recently, but he just is the man for Plymouth. He scores all of their goals near enough. Luton and Mansfield are genuinely pretty tricky fixtures. Mansfield have turned into a bit of a super team recently. I think they've won 4 on the bounce. Maybe you want to look at Mansfield as a pick, but I do think that their fixtures are quite tough this week. Did consider mentioning them earlier. But I do still think that even given the fixtures, they're both at home for Plymouth. And Tolaj, because of how involved he is, he's going to be on penalties. He's shown that he can score a hat-trick. He's got that ceiling. Gets a lot of shots on target too. I just think that he's the perfect pick, and you shouldn't have to worry about his minutes either. Ballard, who scored 2 hat-tricks now this season, which is insane. 8.1 average points. Obviously, they've been hyper-inflated by those 2 hat-tricks, but you've still got to give him credit for that. And 10.7 average points in his last 6 is so high. Like, that is crazy good. The XGI is really good. It's just the fixtures that, for me, let Ballard down. I think that 2 away games at Bolton and Doncaster. Doncaster, it's not the easiest place to go by any means, and Bolton is a really tough place, and their defence has been solid recently. So I think the fixtures put me off Ballard. If they were both at home, I'd definitely be looking at it, but I just think that I would rather back those home assets. But 15 goals for the season, you've got to give him credit, and there's no way that you can say that the top scorer in League One, I think even in the whole EFL, is a bad pick. Fletcher at Blackpool, again, he's been on fire. It's just with Fletcher, Marriott and Kadua, my sort of real differentials that I've got in here. Their expected goal involvement, it just isn't as high enough that I would want it to be. I wouldn't feel like, they're necessarily guaranteed loads of chances or loads of those shots on target. As you can see with their shots on target numbers being lower than the rest of them, albeit Marriott and Kadua have probably played considerably less minutes than most of the other picks on this list. I think that out of these bottom 3 differentials, Marriott is probably my favourite one because Reading's form has been really nice as well. And I feel like if you put Marriott in, it doesn't cover wing off, but he complements wing a lot, doesn't he? And if he's going to get assisted by someone, it might be wing. If you want a piece of that Reading attack, maybe you want to look at Marriott and it might free yourself to not have to pick wing. I don't know. It depends how you look at things. If you're one of those who thinks that somebody can cover someone off in fantasy games. But I do think that Fletcher and Marriott deserve credit for their form. And Kadua's form has been ridiculous recently. He's got 7 goals in his last 8 games, which is crazy. He's probably the most informed player in the whole of the EFL right now. He just keeps scoring, which as a player who I watched at Wycombe quite a bit, he never felt like one of those players. His 2 goals in that time, scoring against Wycombe as well, weren't perfect. So obviously he's just in crazy form. But Kadua, to me, I know he's a forward. I wish he was a midfielder pick because he feels like one of those that's like, like an Almiron or like a Wilson in FPL. He feels like he should be like a 5.5 million midfielder that you pick up as a real differential when he hits a crazy purple patch. I don't think he's going to keep scoring like this for the whole of the season, but you've got to know when a player's in as good as form as Kadua is, you've certainly got to think about it. Drinan and Carnu are in there. Carnu I could have so easily put in there as well. The same with Drinan. Just the fixtures maybe put me off a little bit, although Walsall's fixtures are really nice. And I would actually say maybe even better than most of the picks that we've got on here, but I just think there's so many amazing forwards to choose between, and I've done them pretty harshly by not including them, but I still think they're really good. Especially Carnu, that his fixtures, they are actually really good fixtures. So yeah, loads to think about there. I'd love to know who people are thinking about for their forwards as well. I know I've asked a lot of questions in this video, but I'd love to get involved in conversations in the comments. So do let me know too. If you're typing out a comment from earlier, add in who your forward is going to be because I want to hear about it. And are you tempted by any of those differentials? I think it's Tolaj for me, but any of them have good reason to get in my team this week. Gather round everyone, welcome back to the Experts Corner, and I'm delighted this week to welcome the world number 36 in Tyler. He's a really good lad, delighted to get Tyler on over the season. We nearly had him on a few weeks ago, but he fell a bit ill, so thankfully Tyler's back to full health, back to full strength, and he's smashing it this season as well. And he's actually got a decent team name. I like it when people pick a fantasy EFL team name based on their own assets from the team they support. He supports Shrewsbury. Fingers crossed they can get themselves out of this mess. Anyway, for Tyler. But let's hear who he's got in his team, how he's looking, because Tyler's a great manager, so let's see who he's fancying this week.
Hello everyone, just before I start I just want to say a quick thank you to Toby for allowing me to be on the Experts Corner this week. A great fantasy EFL manager and an even better guy, so go and subscribe to him if you haven't already. So without further ado, let me get you into my team. In goal I've gone with Jake Eastwood of Cambridge. Cambridge are pretty solid defensively this season and haven't conceded in the last 2 home games. The fixtures are also definitely there as well, against 2 pretty poor sides away from home this season in Tranmere and my team Shrewsbury. So I think there's definitely a high chance he gets at least 1 clean sheet out of 2 games. Eastwood also seems to get a few points from saves now and again as well, which can add to a nice bonus points tally, especially for a keeper in a double game week. So yeah, he's I think I'm pretty locked in on him being my keeper pick this week. For my defenders, I've gone with Walsall's Aidan Flint. You just can't ignore them fixtures against Accrington and Crawley really, especially when they're playing both games at home. I do expect them to get at least 1 clean sheet in one of those games. And Flint also seems to get a decent amount of bonus points per game from clearances, etc. So I think he's definitely a very good option this week. I'm not sure if he's a lock in my team, but he's definitely there for now. And next to him, I've got Jack Sanders, who's definitely staying on my team, facing 2 relegation battling sides in my club Shrewsbury and an out of form Bristol Rovers side. He's surely going to get at least 1 clean sheet out of them 2 games, and we all know how OP he is with clearance bonus points as well, so I think he's definitely probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive assets this week. Now moving on to my midfielders. First up I've gone with, and I know Toby will like this one, Wycombe's Fred Onyedinma. He scored 2 goals in his last game against Northampton, and I think he has been playing up top for Wycombe in his last few games. So I think that sort of combined with 2 solid fixtures at home against Peterborough and Wigan, I think there's a massive haul potential on the cards for him this double game week. My second midfielder and captain this game week is Ollie Nord. Pretty self-explanatory really. He's picked up where he left off since coming back from injury. The jack of all trades in this game, so many routes to points, and he's just a safe captaincy option, especially for a double game week. And the same reason really for why I've chosen my third midfielder, Lewis Wing. Multiple routes to points and 2 decent fixtures at home to Barnsley and Exeter as well. I think it's sort of hard not to have him in my side for this double game week coming up. And up top, I'm on Sam Dolby at the moment of Bolton, playing up top for one of the best teams in League One. And I just don't think you can ignore them fixtures at home against Leyton Orient and Burton, especially from an attacking point of view. And I think Dolby has secured his place in the Bolton starting 11 now, playing the full 90 in their last 2 games. And with him potentially being on pens as well and averaging an XG of like 0.54 per game, I think it is, I can definitely see him being a top attacking asset this week. And finally, for my team picks, I've gone with Walsall and MK Dons. Just similar reasons to why I picked Flint and Sanders really. The fixtures are definitely there, not only from a defensive point of view, but an attacking one as well. At home as well, so I do expect both teams to pick up 6 points from 6 this double game week. And yeah, that's it for my current Game Week 26 draft. Thanks again Toby for having me on, an absolute legend of the community, so make sure you go and subscribe to him if you haven't already. And yeah, best of luck to you all.
Thanks so much again, Tyler, for coming on. That Onyedinma pick, respect to you for that, and some very kind words as well, so thank you very much for those 2. You heard the man. Hit subscribe, hit like if you haven't done already. Yeah, really nice team. And I would actually say that, obviously, I mentioned Flint very briefly earlier, but I do think that he's still a nice pick. Just the Accrington game scares me. They've hurt me so many times. And then Dolby is a massive differential considering some of the forward options. I was very surprised when, I listened through to who Tyler had suggested he was going to pick and saw Dolby in there. I think that's a bit of a wild one, but certainly I can see the thought process behind it. And if he hits a mega hole and a lot of those big assets end up blanking, then you're looking at a real big gain. So love to see it. The MK and Cambridge picks the same as what I'm on at the moment as well. I won't spoil it too much because I'm about to get into my team reveal in a second. But thanks very much to Tyler for coming on, and best of luck for the week. On to my Game Week 26 Fantasy EFL team selection now. Here is how we're looking. I'm actually feeling very good about the team at the moment. I would say the 2 places in my side that I'm the least confident that I will stick with are Tucker and Wing, although they are probably 2 of the most logical and the most consistent assets who we have in there. And we'll talk through them sort of one by one. I think that Eastwood and Cambridge, those Cambridge assets, I just feel really good about their chances of a clean sheet. Their defensive data is absolutely outstanding. It's just the attacking data that puts me off the team pick a little bit, but I do think that they are both really good picks and they're going to be so popular this week. The same for MK Dons as well. Sort of doubling up on both of my team picks with the defence is a little bit scary, because if they both concede in all their games, then I'm absolutely in the mud. But I'm confident enough in MK Dons' fixtures. I think that Sanders' captaincy makes so much sense this week. Maybe it's not got the crazy ceiling that like a Fletcher or an Onyedinma captain in them would have, or a forward. But I just think, given how good his bonuses are, add that onto the potential of clean sheets, I just think that it's a bit of a no-brainer, and I love him as a captaincy pick this week. But there are so many viable options. He's just the one who's calling out the most to me as well. So I've got Lewis Wing in there. I had Shelton in for the longest time as well. I'm also thinking about Norwood too. So yeah, it could be Wing, it could be Fletcher who I move out. Onyedinma is definitely going to be in there. Fred and Fletcher both playing up front. I've just got to have them in there, and I feel like I've got Wing in there more out of fear of his sort of expected ownership, the amount of people who are going to have him. I don't really want to have him in there, but I do think he's a great pick. And with him having penalties as well, it just makes sense, doesn't it? I think it's like him or Norwood. It feels like you almost have to have one of them in there. And then Tolaj up front, as I say, like this was Selec for quite a while as well, and then it was Marriott, and now it's become Tolaj. I think his ceiling is brilliant, but I think all of their ceilings are great. I just feel really confident in Tolaj's minutes. I do feel good about Salec's too, but Tolaj's been in better form. He's shown he can hit a hat-trick. He's just the main man for Plymouth, and everything needs to go through him if they're going to score a goal, it feels like. So I think he makes sense. I don't think the fixtures are perfect, but 2 home games is still really nice. I like it. I feel excited by Tolaj, by Fletcher, and by Onyedinma, which is what you want in Fantasy EFL. That's what we play the game for. So really excited by the team. It may well swap around. Keep an eye on my Twitter, FEFLTIPS. Again, I'm shamelessly plugging, but if you're not following, give it a follow as well. And yeah, that's how we're looking. But we're very happy with the team, and I do really like the team, what we've settled on at the moment. So that's all that we've got time for this week. As I've just said, I'm really happy with how the team's looking. I think we've got some big differentials in there. I'm actually hoping that Fred Onyedinma's ownership doesn't go too crazy, because I do think that he's got such a high ceiling this week. The same with Fletcher as well. 2 big differentials that could get us some points and climb us up the table. Fingers crossed, because I do actually feel good about this week. I was a bit unsure on my team last week, and maybe that reflected with how it performed. But yeah, good luck to everybody for the week. Hopefully, as I'm recording this, Watford do really well tonight too, but who knows how that's going to end. Best of luck for the week for everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have the best week, and I'll see you here in the same time, same place next week. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for watching, and peace.